I've tried a lot of freelancing platforms and I've only found a few that really stick out to me as someone who has tried to make a living off these platforms as both a freelancer and an agency. And so in today's video, I'm going to give a complete breakdown of the 5 top most popular freelance platforms out there right now in 2026. And these are based both off a mixture of my own experiences as well as just what I've heard in the market. So let's just get straight into it. Number 1, Upwork. Obviously, you knew I was going to talk about Upwork, right? This is easily the most well-known platform out there, and for me, has been where I've generated over $200,000 in on-platform earnings. So Upwork's been massive for me. I made a lot of money there. Now, the pros of Upwork: it has a massive client database, right? It's the largest freelancer platform in the world, and really none of the other platforms can really hold a torch to it. It's massive. There are thousands of jobs posted every single day. And personally, I think this allows for a really solid, wide range of offers that you can really take advantage of as a freelancer, and allows you to scale as an agency. And personally, I've used the platform to scale my agency up to about $85,000 a month in revenue. So there's a really high earning potential on there. Now, I know some of my friends who are freelancers on that platform who charge anywhere between $50 to $150 per hour. That's what I do. Sometimes they're charging anywhere between $100 to $300 for very specific, specialized offers. And sometimes agencies are charging anywhere between $1,000 to $20,000 a month. Some of my projects have run all the way up to $20,000 a month, or rather $20,000 in total billing. Upwork is really good if you're trying to scale an agency or dial things in as a freelancer. On top of that, you get really good access to an international market. I currently live in Mexico, but I have access to the US market. I'm also getting clients in Australia and the UK. Just because of the sheer weight of how many jobs are on this platform, it really opens up what you can actually work with in terms of the types of clients. On top of that, so yes, massive client list, really wide range of clients, commands a pretty high rate. There's also the built-in lead generation element in there. And Upwork's able to do this because of just the sheer scale that they have. And so, unlike traditional job marketing platforms where you have to actively apply for jobs, and you still have to do that on Upwork, but since Upwork has so many people on the platform, you actually are able to lean a little bit more on the ability to get invited to jobs and actually have clients come to you if you've actually dialed in your profile. And that takes a while, and I've made a bunch of videos on how to make sure your profile gets seen. Check out the channel if you want to see that. But if you dial in that profile, there's a massive opportunity to actually get a lot of inbound leads as opposed to simply constantly running on the treadmill of applying for more work. So you're getting inbound, and you're getting good inbound too. You're getting clients who have clearly demonstrated they have a problem and are coming to you, which means typically higher rates and faster deal cycles. So Upwork is great, right? But it's also really good, yes, as a freelancer, but also, as I mentioned, for agencies, okay? Upwork actually has agency accounts set up. It allows you to have multiple team members in there. You can do shared proposals. You can manage contracts across multiple clients. Upwork is built, yes, for freelancers, but also has that agency model in mind, which if you're trying to grow a business, which is what I'm trying to do, it really, really is supportive of that. Now, some of the cons, all right? Platform fees, obviously these platforms have to make their money, right? Upwork takes a percentage of earnings at the time of recording that is 10% for most contracts. So if you make 5,000, Upwork's gonna take 500. And for volume freelancers, this can add up. Also, number 2, being the most competitive platform out there, or rather the biggest platform out there, it is therefore the most competitive. There are a lot of freelancers. There are a lot of low-cost freelancers. There are a lot of freelancers who are proposing. There are a lot of freelancers who are bidding on jobs. And keep in mind, to apply for jobs on Upwork, and I'm going to talk about this point in a second, you have to buy what is called connects. And connects are like credits that you spend to apply for jobs. And when you have a lot of people bidding on jobs, the cost to bid on that same job goes up because it's like an auction marketplace. So if I bid 10 connects, for you to be seen above me, you have to bid 11 connects. And so just the fact that there's so many people on this platform means that you can actually end up spending quite a bit of money to apply for jobs. Now, as your profile gets better and gets more improved, now you will find as your profile gets more reviews and gets more work that when you're applying for jobs, just because you have more social proof, you will see an increased rate of like interviews coming through with the same amount of bids. For example, if I have no reviews and I bid 20 connects on a job and you have lots of reviews and bid 15 connects on a job, you're probably still more likely to get that interview over me because you have the social proof, even though I've spent more money on connects. What this means is that it's really good for those who already have a profile dialed in. It's really hard for those who don't, which means it can take a while to build up that social proof. Which kind of brings me to the other point, connects. To apply for jobs, you must purchase connects, right? Which is essentially Upwork's currency. Now, typical jobs cost anywhere between 8 to 16 connects, all right? Now, I've seen jobs go all the way up to like 25 connects, 30 connects, depending on how many people bid on that job, all right? Now, 8 to 16 connects, that's gonna cost you anywhere between $1 to $3 per proposal. And if you're bidding on a lot of jobs, that can rack up, okay? But the way that I like to really analyze it, I don't know how to make an analogize. There we go, analogize. It is, you'd be spending the same amount of money on advertising as you'd be spending on connects, and it's the same thing. So spend money on connects or ads, Google ads, I'd rather just spend it on connects. On top of that, Upwork is quite appealing to a lot of people, and what can happen is a lot of the times people rely solely on Upwork for their leads, and I'll tell you right now, Upwork is always gonna side with the client, the people who are spending money. And so if you have an argument or a disagreement, Upwork is gonna side with the client and is more likely to ban your profile as opposed to the client's profile because they're paying money, which means people who overly rely on Upwork as their only source of business are at a pretty inherent disadvantage because they're not able to really, finesse the process of being all of a sudden my only lead source is gone and I have to all these clients. Don't rely on Upwork solely to get your work, okay? On top of that, writing proposals. So while there is the element of there being a lot of jobs and you do actually have a bit of inbound leads coming to you on Upwork, you also have to bid on jobs that cost money with connects, but you also have to write proposals to those jobs. I'm muttering and stuttering my words. I don't know what is happening with me today, but you get the idea. You have to write proposals and spend money on connects to get the job. Writing proposals can take a lot of time if you're trying to do this at scale. Personally, I have an automation that runs that automatically applies for all these jobs, and it saves me so much time. I apply for anywhere between 60 to 100 jobs a week, and it's all automated, all right? If you're doing Upwork, I highly recommend checking that out. There's a link in the description of this video. So Upwork, here's the reality, okay? Most freelancers are gonna fall into 3 categories on Upwork as a platform. Struggling beginners, because they don't have a lot of credibility, they're sending a lot of proposals and they're winning few jobs. That's your initial phase, okay? That'll be like your first 3 months, everyone goes through it. If you can get through that, you're gonna break into the next stage of consistent earners. These are people who have good reviews, have regular client work, and are pretty consistently earning 3 to 10K per month. You can get there in about 6 months if you just chip away, over deliver quicker than what you said you'd deliver, and get reviews from clients, okay? Then you have the people who are like me, who have a strong niche position. So I just do email and SMS marketing, and I get high ticket clients, and we're generating anywhere between 20 to 100K in monthly earnings on the platform, okay? The difference between those 3 is usually time and how dialed in your offer is on Upwork. And I've got a bunch of videos that talk about that on my channel. Check them out if you want to learn about that. That's platform number 1. This is going to be a long video. Platform number 2, Fiverr. This is actually where I got my first start as a freelancer. Now, I was actually working at another email marketing agency when I first started, and I started creating gigs on Fiverr, and in total, I think I made 10 to 15 grand on the platform. Nothing massive, but there are some really good inherent advantages with Fiverr compared to Upwork. So let me break it down here. Fiverr is very much a system built on passive client acquisition. So unlike many freelance platforms, Fiverr works more like a marketplace or a search engine as opposed to a place where you bid actively on jobs. Now, it does have that, but really it's built on the idea that clients go onto Fiverr and browse for gigs and come to you instead of you pitching to them. Now that has some advantages, right? It means less time writing on proposals, orders can happen automatically, and this makes it attractive for freelancers who prefer inbound leads instead of outreach, okay? So it's a little bit more set it, forget it. It's really easy to start. Fiverr has one of the lowest barriers to entry of any of the freelance platforms, okay? You just create a profile, list your services, set your pricing, and you can start selling immediately without approvals or complex onboarding, all right? You can actually find my old Fiverr profile. If you go on Fiverr, just type in Gavin Hewitson, I should show up, it's kind of funny. Got some photos with me with significantly longer hair. On top of that, Fiverr is really built around the idea of productized services, all right? So Fiverr encourages freelancers to package their services into clear offerings, okay? So it's less like bespoke email marketing strategy, and it's more around email marketing setup. This would be for me and my agency, of course. Basic, $150, standard, $400, premium, $900, and within each of those packages, we'd have like a different set of offerings, right? And this does help standardize work and increase order value and reduce custom quoting. And it really is built around lower margins, lower overall revenue, but allows you to create a business or really offering on that platform that allows you to kind of scale pretty effectively at lower rates, all right? And so you can, offer a bunch of other stuff too, right? You can offer gig packages, gig extras, subscriptions, custom offers as well. Does enable that. Don't really recommend it, to be honest. And a lot of freelancers and sometimes agencies, I've met some pretty successful agencies on there, have increased their revenue through those add-ons and upgrades, all right? There's a bunch of little cool upsells that you can do on there. And Fiverr is almost like the e-commerce of the freelancing world, where you come up with products that people buy and you sell and you just rinse and repeat. Now, Fiverr does have a pro tier, and it's called Fiverr Pro. It's more their premium level, and it's really relying, or rather built for pro freelancers, okay? So higher rates, and that's where those bespoke offerings do tend to come in. I'll be fully honest with you, I don't think there's a whole lot of deal flow that comes through from there. I have been on the pro tier myself, and I didn't see any massive influx in deal flow. I didn't actually see any, that's to be fully honest with you. So the cons, those are all the pros, the cons, all right? Fiverr charges a very high platform fee. In fact, it's the highest one that I've seen out of any of the other platforms. And this is because the barriers to entry are so low that they can afford to do this. Fiverr takes 20% commission of all your orders. So you charge $1,000, you get 800. That sucks, okay? Keep in mind, you're also competing on jobs that are typically lower priced. So you can't really make up for that commission that they take with higher prices, because Fiverr is, the whole business premise is gigs for $5, Fiverr, right? So it's not ideal in terms of its commission structure. The algorithmic dependency is also a massive thing. So your visibility on Fiverr is really dependent on where you sit within the algorithm, and you have no idea where you sit. So number 3 con, or maybe this is 2, I can't remember, algorithmic dependency. So your visibility on Upwork is largely going to be dependent on how the algorithm treats you. And unfortunately, there's no clear answer as to why you change in your rankings. There's some basic rankings, but sometimes you can completely drop off a cliff and all your deal flow goes away and you have no idea why. I was on Fiverr for a while and I was doing incredibly well, getting orders every single day. And then all of a sudden, all of my deals just went straight down. And I had no idea why, and I couldn't figure it out. I tried contacting support, no one talked to me. And so you don't really have any control over how many deals you get. It's not like Upwork where you can just apply for more jobs. You are completely reliant on Fiverr positioning you well within their systems. And if you don't have that, you're screwed, like I am. I no longer use Fiverr because for some reason, my entire portfolio got wiped and I didn't get any leads from it. On top of that, Fiverr is incredibly slow to release its payments to people. So sometimes it can take 14 days for regular sellers to get their money after a client has paid. And for top rated sellers, it can take 7 days. This can really impact your cash flow if you're trying to run an efficient business. And it's also, I just think, kind of poor business practice on Fiverr. They do it, they like really delay the process of you getting paid because they actually keep your money and then they get interest on it in bank accounts, and it's like an extra basically way of them making side income. I hate it. I think it's very coercive, slimy business practices. And for that, like, I just don't like working on that platform. On top of them taking 20% from the top line of what you actually charge. So they're making a lot of money off you. On top of that, like, Fiverr also encourages limited client relationships, right? They want the relationships between you and the client to be very transactional rather than long-term contracts. Unlike some platforms, retainers are less common, large consulting projects are rarer, and many gigs are just treated as one-off orders, and there's not a whole lot of personalization there. The platform is built on commoditized products that you as a freelancer are selling, and they're not really, or rather you are not really able to build a strong connection with Fiverr unless you take the work off of the platform. Second to last thing that I don't really like about Fiverr is they have a very strict metric success score that affects your rankings within the platform. And if you don't hit these metrics on a consistent basis, you lose your ranking in the platform and therefore where you're treated. Really quickly, sorry to interrupt the video. I just wanted to tell you something really cool that we've started doing with Inbox. I've actually created a school community where I teach you anything and everything I know about email and SMS marketing, from really advanced campaign strategies to how to simply set up your Klaviyo account, all the way to building really, really cool automations for the back end of your e-commerce store. Whether you're a business owner trying to learn how to do email marketing or an email marketer trying to learn how to become a better email marketer, there is a link in the description to this school community where I teach you everything I know. Check it out, it's worthwhile. Book a call to have a chat with me to see if you're a right fit for the community, and if you are, I'd love to get you in there. Anyway, sorry for interrupting your video, let's get back to it. Within the algorithm. And sometimes these rankings are just completely irrelevant and unfair, and there's no way to appeal it, and you can lose. For example, let's say you face a delay for the project that you were supposed to deliver because the client didn't give you assets. That can negatively affect your ranking, and then all of a sudden it's your fault because the client didn't give you the materials that you needed, and all of a sudden you're suffering because the client wasn't able to uphold their end of the bargain, and now you are seeing a reduction in traffic, and all of a sudden you've been punished and you're losing your rankings and you're relying on a system that is completely unfair. On top of that, the last thing, customer support on Fiverr, it sucks. It really sucks. I mean, these people don't give you any help. Don't rely on them for anything. I'm just saying that right now, okay? Fiverr's okay if you want to run a very basic commodified offer with low margins, but you want to make up for it and scale and you don't want to charge high rates. Not great if you're trying to charge high rates or develop long-lasting client relationships. Think about it like you're trying to sell a can of Coca-Cola versus a Ferrari, right? I would say the Ferrari is Upwork in that analogy. Third platform, Freelancer. Now, at the time of recording this video, I'm actually doing a 2-week challenge to see how much I can make on freelancer.com, and we'll see how it goes. So, some of the pros of Freelancer. It is a pretty large global marketplace, just like that of Upwork, okay? Large number of job listings, not as many as Upwork though, and there are a lot of clients from a very wide range of industries. However, if you are in a very specific niche, you might find this platform a little limited in terms of how much deal flow it can actually get you. Another pro with this platform is it's pretty low barriers to entry. You can create a profile pretty quickly, go through a few steps of the verification process. Some of them are a little tedious, but I was able to get verified in under 20 minutes. This is really appealing to freelancers who are trying to first build their profile, but if you do want to start unlocking some of the higher tier job listings on freelancer.com, you do need to go through a few hoops. And some of the hoops are a little bit slimy, and I'll talk about them in the cons section of this little section, but you do need to spend a little bit more money to get access to higher tier jobs, all right? On top of that, like I said before, Freelancer does have a pretty wide range of international clients. So there's a lot of clients from India, Australia, UK, United States. And so if you are hungry and available, there are projects that are available for you kind of around the clock. So some of the cons. Like any platform that's very popular, similar to Upwork, price competition is pretty competitive. So freelancer.com is known for extremely competitive pricing, okay? So if you're trying to make a living off this platform, many projects attract bids from freelancers that are offering incredibly low rates. I was applying for a job recently. The job was posted for $1,000 and many bids were sitting at around $50 to $100, which for me is a complete waste of my time to work at that rate, right? So this can make it harder for premium freelancers who are experienced to command those higher rates. On top of that, off the back of that as well, there are a large number of low quality jobs on the platform. A common complaint about Freelancer is the number of poorly written job posts, unrealistic budgets, and clients who never hire in the first place. And keep in mind, you are bidding on these jobs and you are spending money on these jobs. And there's nothing worse than paying money for a job that was never going to be hired in the first place. Something I also see, which is kind of similar to Upwork if I'm being fully honest, is the bidding competition. Many projects on freelancer.com get dozens or even hundreds of bids, which means you have a very low likelihood of getting a positive response. Now, obviously, you can manipulate this by how much you bid on those jobs. So the more money you spend, the higher you'll climb in the rankings, and how dialed in your profile is. But what this means is when you're first starting out and you're like a new guy with not a whole lot of money and no reviews, it can be very, very competitive. I would actually say even harder than Upwork to get your start because there's less deal flow to actually get those initial reviews as opposed to what you'd see on Upwork. Platform fees. Con number 4, freelancer.com charges a lot of different fees. And it's actually quite confusing. And this is one of the things that really annoyed me with this platform. First of all, they charge a 10% commission, which is fair, same as Upwork, but there's also fees on featured bids, and there's a bunch of these optional membership upgrades, which I really don't like. For example, there's this one process on freelancer.com. If you want to get verified for your English language ability, you need to buy a test that they sell to then verify your language skills. That just feels so slimy and extortionate to me. Surely you just give me the test for free and I prove my language skills instead of me having to spend money to prove that I can speak the language. I think that's like really annoying, and I find a lot of these platforms try and find ways to make money out of the freelancers instead of the ways, or rather the clients themselves who are hiring on these platforms. I really don't like that. Also, the UX on that platform sucks. Freelancer is really hard to navigate. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. You should see a little screen recording of someone trying to navigate it right now. It gives me like an aneurysm, okay? And I'm a pretty screwed on guy. When I see this platform, I get overly stimulated, super confusing, okay? So that's freelancer.com. Honestly, in my tiers of where I'm ranking things so far, Upwork's at the top, Fiverr's next, Freelancer. Let me recommend these other platforms first, and I'll talk about Freelancer later. I am in the process of doing my freelancer.com challenge, and I will have like a full review of that shortly. Recommendation number 4, Toptal is a very different platform from platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, okay? Fiverr and Upwork are typically treated as like an open marketplace where almost anyone can sign up. Toptal is the opposite, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. These guys position themselves as a network for the top 3% of freelance talent in the world, which means you can't just create an account and start bidding on jobs. You actually have to go through a very intense screening process. We're talking technical tests, live interviews, portfolio reviews, and sometimes real-world project simulations. And yes, a lot of people fail this entire process, but here's the reason freelancers still try to get in, right? The clients on Toptal are typically much higher quality. We're talking venture-backed startups, large tech companies, and enterprise clients that need specialized and very niched down talent. Because of that, the rates on Toptal tend to be significantly higher, right, as a freelancer charging. For example, developers charge anywhere between $800 to $200 per hour. Designers and consultants regularly work on projects worth tens of thousands of dollars. And so instead of fighting for these low budget projects and trying to make up for low budgets with scale, you're matched with companies that are actually looking for premium freelancers and are serious. However, there are trade-offs, like with everything in life. First, the barrier to entry is extremely high. So obviously you're gonna have to spend a lot of time actually trying to get on this platform, and most applicants never even make it through the screening process. Second, once you're inside the platform, Toptal controls the relationship with the client. They almost act like a talent agency, and they connect you with the opportunities, handle the contracts, and manage the billing. Now, for some freelancers, that's great, right? Less work for you. For others, it means less independence compared to platforms where you negotiate directly with clients, right? Another downside is that the number of projects available can really fluctuate, which is typical with higher end products and just higher end services in general. Because the platform is exclusive, there aren't thousands of job posts every day like you would see on Upwork. Instead, you get matched with projects when your skills align with what the clients are requesting. So if your expertise is in high demand, you can stay very busy. But if demand drops, work may slow down, okay? Which means you're not getting a predictable stream of income, essentially, if we really boil it down, right? In other words, it's not really designed for beginners, right? It's designed for people who are established, who know their worth, and who are essentially experts. And that's the real difference between these other platforms, right? Upwork and Fiverr operate like open marketplaces. Toptal operates more like an elite talent agency, okay? So you got the premium Toptal, and then you've got the not so premium Fiverr, Upwork, freelancer.com, but you make up for it in scale. And I'll be fully honest with you, I've made a lot of money on the less premium platforms. Next on the list is a platform that a lot of freelancers overlook, but it actually has a strong presence in certain markets. The platform is called PeoplePerHour, okay? And this is a freelancing platform that started in the UK and has a very strong European client base. The way PeoplePerHour works is a mix between Fiverr, Upwork, and Freelancer, right? On one side, freelancers can bid on client projects, similar to how Upwork works. Clients post a job, freelancers send proposals, and the client hires the person they think is the best fit. But there's also a feature called hourlies. Hourlies are prepackaged services you create and list on your profile. And believe it or not, Upwork is also trying to do this exact same thing, okay? Here's an example, right? I will design a professional landing page for you for $300, or I will audit your marketing flows for $200, okay? You can either pitch clients or let clients come to you, right? Now, one of the advantages of PeoplePerHour is the competition is pretty low, and that's because the platform isn't globally dominant. The number of job postings as a byproduct of that is typically lower to what you'd see on Upwork. So once again, it's not a platform that you're gonna rely on for consistent deal flow like you can with Upwork. Another difference between these other platforms and PeoplePerHour is the fee structure. That's right, it is 20%. Massive, okay? Just like Fiverr, which we all know kind of sucks. Those fees are brutal. However, long-term relationships, the fees actually go down. So the more you work with clients, the lower those fees become, okay? Also, the platform has a pretty intense approval process for new freelancers. Not everyone who signs up gets accepted, which typically means you can get higher quality clients down the road as well. Typically, they review your profile before allowing you to start bidding on projects. This helps maintain, a level of quality on the platform. But it also means beginners will struggle on this platform when they're first starting, right? It's not a beginner-friendly platform, unlike Upwork and Fiverr, okay? PeoplePerHour sits somewhere in the middle of that freelancer platform spectrum. It's not as competitive as Upwork. It's not as gig-focused as Fiverr. Instead, it offers a hybrid model that you can really pitch a few different offerings to at once. Okay, those are my top 5 recommendations. So my overall breakdown is this. If I was a freelancer, the first place that I would start to make some money online is number 1, Upwork. Because of the sheer scale of jobs that are available there, the lower barrier to entries to actually get work there, and then also the low fees. I'd also try and combine that a little bit with Fiverr, to be honest. I'd throw up some easy to purchase gigs on Fiverr. And what you can do, I'm assuming you're just starting out on your freelancer journey, is you can build up reviews and case studies from that work. Once you build up those case studies, I would then start recommending going to these more premium platforms like Toptal or honestly, PeoplePerHour, and taking the reviews and the case studies that you've built up from these other platforms and bring them over to those other platforms. Now, that doesn't mean I would stop doing, for example, Fiverr and Upwork. I would keep running those and then gradually have these other things running as well. I would never recommend choosing one over the other, to be honest. I would try and have a North Star be, how can I be on all of these platforms at once? And how can I build systems to automatically apply for jobs or fill in applications for me? Or how can I hire people to run that process for me to ensure that I have consistent deal flow coming in from multiple different platforms? That's what I've done, at least, and it's worked really, really well for me. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe to the channel. I make these videos to document my own journey, provide tips and tricks. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. 2 videos every single week. We'll see you in the next one.